Bible as the infallible repository for redemptive revelation, and as a result of that, everything is up for grabs. If there's no guiding light, if there's no guiding principle, if there's no ultimate authority, then we have chaos, and that, in essence, is what we are headed towards if we don't do something. Truth is under siege. This is a battle. We may very much look back at this time 10 years from now and say, we weren't ready, and as a result, we now look more like Europe than we do to a nation that was founded on a belief in the Bible. This is something that has shaped jurisprudence, the educational system in America. It has shaped the guiding principles for this nation. And yet today, the Bible is under siege, and as Joe said, the gloves are off. You have a picture of the Bible on the front of a major magazine, and then an article and an editor who are focused on one thing and one thing alone, and that is destroying the credibility of the Bible. And Joe, how do you put all this in context? Because on the one hand, with the gay agenda, we don't want to repel, we want to reach. So we don't want to create a we-they siege mentality against the world or against a particular practice. We want to reach, not repel. How can we genuinely do this with gentleness and respect?
I think you just described both the goal and the formula. We want to operate with gentleness and respect, and so those are the tools we should use. I'm reminded of Paul telling Timothy, the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle to all men. But it doesn't end there. It doesn't just say be nice. He also said apt to teach, patient, in meekness, instructing those who oppose themselves. So I do think, Hank, we're walking a tightrope here. I'm afraid that too many Christians are moving towards just being nice and saying, in essence, to the homosexual population, look, we want you to know that we love you, therefore we will not say anything that may offend you. And we are mistakenly assuming that if we cause people to like us, that means we have reached them. And that is not true. People are reached by truth and, of course, the enlightenment of the Holy Spirit. And so I think it's not only possible, but it's mandatory to maintain a respectful attitude, but with that attitude to speak clearly, to say, in essence, we have a Creator. Our Creator had specific intentions when He created us. Those intentions extend themselves to all of our relationships, our sexual relationships included, and any behaviors falling short of those intentions are the definition of sin. Now, that can be said respectfully, but it also has to be said clearly.
You make a point I want to underscore. If there are, in fact, attendant moral and medical problems with sexual promiscuity in general, wouldn't it be homophobic in the extreme to obscure the scientific realities concerning homosexuality from a particular group of people? That seems to me the quintessential example of being homophobic.
And I think you're getting to the root issue here, Hank, and that is, do we define love as a kind feeling by which we all get along, or we define love by a way we serve people in their own best interest? If I truly love an individual, I am more concerned with what is in their best interest than I am in how nice things feel between us. And again, I'm certainly, gosh, you know me, Hank, I am very critical of the way many Christians have needlessly offended homosexual people, and I'm very critical of the attitude that many Christians have had towards the homosexual population and the wrong ways they've expressed truth. But God forbid we shy away from expressing truth just because some people have done it in the wrong way.
Do you ever foresee a time in which a conversation like the one we're having right now would constitute a hate crime?
No, and by the way, you mentioned something earlier that we need to reiterate, Hank. We may well look back on this period of American history as a time in which we were not prepared, because as we speak, critical words are being redefined. Hate, intolerance, bigotry, love. Those words are having their meanings shifted as we speak, so that perhaps while a lot of us were sleeping, the culture has shifted towards an acceptance of these redefinitions. So part of our challenge, I believe, in the marketplace of ideas is to challenge the accepted meaning of these words, as in bigotry. Is it truly a bigoted thing to tell someone that there is such a thing as right or wrong? Is it possible to say you disagree with someone without hating them? I would assert that it is. Newsweek in particular has actually proven itself very deeply committed to a redefinition of the family and normal sexual behavior. I suspect that any editor who begins an issue by saying, in essence, that a high percentage of his readers are wrong and he doesn't care if they object to what he says, is not an editor that's too concerned about sales. It's somewhat like Hollywood. Hollywood producers know that there's big money to be made in family-friendly films, and yet, consistently, Hollywood churns out films that are anything but family-friendly, many of which bomb at the box office, but they are committed to an ideology. So I tend to think that Newsweek sincerely wants to promote a one-sided perspective of this issue. And I think that rather than, as Hank said, curse the darkness, we should see this as an opportunity to articulate a reasoned response to the claims that the magazine makes. And I think, in fairness, we haven't hit much on this today, but we can also respond to the arrogance in the tone of the article itself.
Why don't you do that? That's one of the points that hasn't been underscored that thus far. There is an arrogance in the way this is being communicated.
There really is, Hank, and I do think there is a place for pointing out not only our disagreement with the content, because that's not entirely new, but as consumers, I think we have to ask ourselves, is it reasonable for us to support a publication that has so openly dismissed us without any sort of a fair hearing? Just for example, one of Lisa Miller's comments in the article is that, in essence, Christian objections to homosexuality are not based on the Bible, but on our discomfort with gay sex. So she has presumed to know what we feel, what we think, and she has presumed, in essence, to say we don't mean what we're saying. We are only saying it because we are bigoted or uncomfortable with the concept of homosexual sex. And indeed, by the way, I do feel a bit queasy even mentioning such specific sexual acts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a prejudice is clouding our thinking. So all of that spells arrogance, and I think there's a place for calling them on that.
And I think, Joe, you have a sense here in the article that what Lisa Miller is saying, and certainly John Meacham is saying, not only in the article, but in his appearances to promote the magazine in the article, he's making the comment in the way in which you would think he is, along with Lisa, saying, look, we as Christians got over slavery, maybe we're going to get over these issues regarding homosexuality as well.
Well, Hank, just for a minute, for the sake of argument, let's concede the first part of that point. I'm not willing to concede, really, the accusation that all of the church supported slavery, because just as you said, clearly that is not true. The Bible condemns slavery. It recognizes it. It certainly doesn't recommend it. The abolitionist movement was largely a Christian-inspired movement, but just suppose, for the sake of argument, we said, yes, the church wholesale was wrong about slavery. Therefore, it must be wrong today about homosexuality. That's an argument that basically presumes that if you have ever been wrong in the past, you must also be wrong in the present. Now, how illogical is that?
Joe Dallas, as always, we appreciate your contributions. Our audience deeply appreciates you. Thanks for coming on in short notice.
Hey, it's an honor. Thank you for having me again, Hank.
God bless you, my friend.